Hey everybody. I've been kind of out of town a bit, but we were able to get a few forays in. Hopefully, we'll continue on those and try and have one, maybe at least try and have one maybe each weekend, but we'll see how it goes. So anyway, let's get started with the table. Okay. All right. So first one you should probably get to know. This one was submitted by Estella. A lot of times these things will look kind of like golf balls sitting out there or eggs, all teed up and ready for you. You'll notice that it's not quite open yet, but when this guy opens down here, it'll leave this ring on the stem. This is some, they tend to kind of bruise this kind of reddish coloration down here. This is actually Chlorophyllum molybdites. They call it the green spored Lepiota. Once it opens up and starts sporulating, get a spore print. Sometimes you'll see that green coloration on the gills. Oftentimes in yards, and this is probably the one that that poisons more people in our country than anything. It just makes you really sick. It won't kill you typically, but you don't want to eat it. Next, I believe this one was also Stella, and this is one that you might be happy to find. This, I believe, is Agaricus campestris. You don't want to mix it with the other one. When it opens, it'll have pretty white gills, but they'll quickly start turning to pink and go to this chocolate color here. I don't see a ring on the stipe there, but it might have gotten knocked off. So this is the one they call the meadow mushroom. Sometimes you can see big flushes in lawns. They don't have tall stipes like the chlorophyllum. And once that chlorophyllum opens and starts swirling, you'll definitely be able to tell the difference. They look more like a parasol than they do like an agaricus. All right. How do I move this? This one was submitted by Isabella Lung. I hope I said that right. I'm sure you've seen these quite a few times. We had quite a few last month. You'll see these decurrent gills. This is kind of typical where, and they start drying out, they get kind of yellow, brown coloration. Can't get a smell, but they typically have a pretty distinct aroma. This is one of your pleurotus mushrooms. This may be Ostriatus. I'm not too sure. It is getting a little bit older. I certainly wouldn't want to eat this mushroom because it's a little old. All right, this one was pretty cool. This is Jeremy George submitted this from Calvert Cliff State Park. You might notice this lovely image with the partial veil there that would have been protecting the gills before that cap opened up. This is actually hiding well, not the ring, but this picture doesn't show one interesting feature in this mushroom. And that is this weird thing going on here. So this is actually what they call a rose comb. I'm not certain on the Amanita species there. Could be something similar to Pantherina, or I'm not too sure of the Amanita species, but this is what they call a rose comb. And so they have this issue sometimes when they're cultivating mushrooms, and they say it's caused from like petroleum product or something like that getting on the cap and causing this. I believe there's also a virus that can do it. If you've hunted chanterelles much, then you have probably encountered this, where the hymenium, the fertile surface, starts growing on the actual cap of the mushroom. I believe Scott even had a bolete there that it looked like it was starting to kind of rose comb up onto the cap as well. So it's fairly common, but not all the time. But anyway, I thought that he thought it looked like a lampshade, which I thought was kind of funny. It kind of does. All right, another Amanita. So this was by April Thompson submitted this one. So this kind of looks like it's not growing right. Something's wrong here. The cap seems like it's halted growth. The stipe is getting kind of big and chunky. So what's happening here is this is actually being attacked by a different mushroom mold. So you may have heard of lobster mushrooms. That's another kind of mushroom mold that attacks a different mushroom that turns that mushroom into a good edible. Well, this one doesn't necessarily turn it into a good edible, but it's just in a similar group where it's attacking this Amanita. So she also submitted this mushroom, which is also an Amanita. In fact, this is Amanita rubescens. And if you look at the base of this mushroom down here, it may actually have some reddish staining. And that's one of the features. You can see this reddish brown staining happening here when this gets bruised. And so this, and in fact, the Hypomyces hyalinus, one of its favorite ones to attack happens to be rubescens. So that may be rubescens, can't say for sure. But little features like that might help you to be like, okay, this might be rubescens, considering it has those like reddish staining there. All right, another one by Jeremy. So here we go, a bolete. So you can kind of tell, once you start looking for boletes, you can start kind of getting an idea, a feel, like the context, the tissue in the cap. You can see a bug or something, or a slug or something has eaten this, and it kind of has a look to it. And the more mushrooms you start looking at, you start kind of getting a general feel for what they might look like. And it kind of has a matte cap, almost kind of velvety looking, so you can kind of tell that looks kind of like a bolete. And when you pull it up, well, what do you know? And we got a red pore too. You can see it is staining blue. He actually got a spore print here with this kind of olive brown coloration. And I also kind of zoomed in here, and you can see it also has this reticulation. We were just talking about this. So you've got this red webbing starting to crawl down. He actually has been adventuring into the spores, which doesn't help me much. But sometimes if you're trying to look into something, a website might have a picture of some spores. And so that might be a good confirmation. This is Caliboletus firmus, I believe, the peed bomb, I believe. Scott, if I get one of these wrong, chime in.
I can't tell from that.
All right, so this one was submitted by Marilyn, and she made this really easy on me because if you remember last month, I think we had the same mushroom, so I just had to switch out the photos. So flipping it over, you've got kind of pale staining on the pore surface. This little dark blue right here kind of threw me. I'm not sure if bicolor has this, but I believe this may be Biorangia bicolor. I'm still trying to get my head around the whole bicolor group, but that may be what this is. And what do you know? We were just talking about this. This was from Jeremy as well, out at Calvert Cliff State Park. Pulling this up, you can see it's got kind of irregular pores, a kind of scurfy stipe there. This typical furry looking, little whiter than usual. A lot of times they'll have more black coloration in there. He did have some other pictures where he had bruised it and had bruising reactions, which this one's going to bruise real dark. Inside kind of goes that pinkish reddish coloration. This is Strobilomyces. I put species because I'm not sure if they're going to be changing it or which one it is. And he actually got a picture of the spores of this one as well. And actually, it's kind of hard to tell, but a lot of the spores of these of this genus have kind of like a reticulation and sometimes spines on them. Can't quite see it, so it might be a stain that they use to get that, or it might be the magnification. But anyway, it's kind of cool to have some spore pictures too. All right, and this one was submitted by Felix, and This is a pretty common mushroom here on the left. Find it pretty often, but usually when we find it, it's getting older and just kind of looks like a brown lump on the log and or a tree trunk or something like that. But when it's young, it'll have this yellow ridge on it. And I believe that's Phellinus gilvus, the mustard yellow polypore. It would be good to have a look at the underside, but I'm just going to go with that because there is one that's similar that grows on pine that actually has elongated gills or pores, which are more like gills. This other one on the right is probably something we're going to see in the next program, and it's actually not a mushroom, it's a slime mold. See this quite often. Walk in, you see a little white fuzzy looking patch on the wood, and if you go look close, it almost looks like little squid tentacles. So this is Ceratiomyxa fruticulosa. I believe there's 2 species, but then I've also seen discussions where they think maybe this one grows the squiddy ones, but it can sometimes grow the honeycomb type. So, all right, a couple more by April Thompson. The ones on the right have a typical, well, you don't really see the Cortina very well, but this is a pretty common mushroom that we find here. A lot of times it will also have kind of like pale whitish spots on the cap with this viscid top. These would normally start getting some sort of rusty color to them when the spores start being produced. So this is Cortinarius iodes, I believe. And the one on the right, I think a lot of you might recognize. This is actually one of the chanterelles. So I didn't put a species on that one. This would be kind of a Sibarius type, but I think the Cantharellus sibarius is European, and I think there's still a lot of talk in the scientific community trying to figure out what goes where and which one's what. And so the chanterelles are edible, and so you could call that one Sibarius, but it's not exactly right. And the reason I would call this a Sibarius, the ones in our area, we call them smooth chanterelles because they don't have these rather deep ridges. So these kind of false gills, they actually look like gills, except if you look close, and they're actually just rounded ridges. Whereas the ones that we typically find in our area are more like a wavy bumpy and just kind of smooth. So we usually get the smooth chanterelles. All right, so this one was submitted by Marilyn. And this is one you can find without having to even leave your house. You can see right here, this is actually the edge of a flower pot. So this is growing in one of her plants. This is Leucocoprinus birnbaumii, which they call the flower pot. Oh, hello. It's typically yellow, just like this, even more yellow sometimes. It's not going to hurt your plants at all. It's actually breaking down breaking down organic matter and actually releasing it. But don't eat it yourself because it is toxic. So pretty little mushroom. It's kind of fun to watch them grow if you see them start popping up. And this one was submitted by Estella Waldman. She found this in Florida. This one's really cool looking. I've actually never found this one myself. Although I did have a friend send me a picture, and I think that was in this area, and they found this. This is Clathrus rubrer. I always pronounce that first word wrong. They call it the Red Cage Stinkhorn. So we typically see like stinky squid and the one with the little tentacle things. Sometimes you'll see the mutinus, where it's just kind of like a little spike coming out of the ground. Well, this one forms a cage, and the spores are produced in the gleba, and the gleba kind of has a smell which attracts the flies. As you can see here, they get it on their feet and they fly off and spread the spores that way. And this one was submitted by Susan Erlinger. Thought it was a very nice little landscape there of some Fuligoseptica, and we're about to talk about slime molds. So anyway, thanks everybody for the submissions. I had a lot, so I didn't use everybody, and I'm sorry if I missed you. And maybe I can use them next time, or maybe I'll throw some in a folder, and sometime in the winter we can have, a nice colorful display when all we're finding is polypores. Anyway, thanks.